Welcome everybody to our afternoon of researching in East Surrey. We have a number of speakers for you today, and the first one I'd like to introduce is Elsa Churchill. And Elsa is the genealogist at the Society of Genealogists, and today she's going to be talking about the sources that we have at the SOG for your research. Welcome, Elsa.
Well, thank you all for coming to this presentation, and I'd very much like to welcome my collaborators from the East Surrey Family History Society, the Surrey History Centre, who are here to join us to also learn about family history resources for Surrey, and we'll also be hearing a contribution from the Vision of Britain Through Time website, who can help us with our focus on this part of the county. So the Society of Genealogists is what I'm here to talk about. It's the oldest and largest genealogical members society in the UK, which seeks to create a working genealogical research hub concentrating on collecting resources relating to how to do family history. So for that, you'd expect us to have textbooks, guides, journals and periodicals, for example. Also, we've asked we focus our resources on what your ancestors did in their lives. So we do collect in things like occupational records, things relating to education or apprenticeship, military service, tax records, criminal records, poor law, newspapers, trade directories, ecclesiastical licenses, church court records, etc., etc. We particularly look to see what research is done before, so we collect, compile family histories and pedigrees, genealogy, research notes and papers, and encourage people not only to deposit research with us, but to write up their family history. But particularly, we focus our attention on the resources for where your ancestors lived, looking for sources for the UK and indeed overseas genealogy records, particularly relating to former colonies and the United Kingdom. That includes indexes, finding aids, copies and transcripts of vital records of birth, marriage and death, church baptisms, marriage and burials, census directories, and lots of other local records. So the subject areas can be found in the library, but our research hub really comprises of the library books, electronic and micromedia, on and off the shelves. So in order to find those, we particularly need to use the catalogues, what we call SOGCAT, the library catalogue, and of course, as an affiliate library, there's that with Family Search, the Family Search catalogue can indicate what can be viewed digitally at the Society, digitised by Family Search. We have an archive, a collection comprising manuscript documents, research papers and notes, special collections and pedigrees. Nearly all of that is off-site, and at the moment we only have paper lists giving very rudimentary lists of what's in those. And again, I'll show you how you can view those from home. And we have a very small percentage of our library placed on amongst our digital collections on SOG Explore for our members, which can comprise records, indexes, databases, books from the library. That's all quite a lot of different places to look to see what's at the Society for what you're interested in. And so I do recommend looking at our website, sog.org.uk, which will sort of give you an indication of how to get the best out of our collections. So look at the pages for the Research Hub, and that gives you a lot of guidance. It's not necessary to pre-book a visit, but if you are travelling a long time and would like to reserve a library computer, perhaps pre-booking is essential, particularly if there's something you've identified through the various catalogues that you would like to view, which would need to be ordered in from off-site. We'd ask you to give us a little bit of notice in order to do that. The library is open to our free of charge to our members. Non-members are more than happy to use the library on payments of a daily search fee, which is explained on the library pages of the website. And for those who can't personally visit the Society's premises in Wharf Road, the library pages have information about our limited search copy services and guidance on employing a professional researcher. With so much information within the library not on the open shelves, it is absolutely vital to use the catalogues to identify what you want, and there is a shortcut to the catalogue on the main pages of the website. So search our collections, and that will lead you to the library catalogue. And that if that's tabs highlighted in yellow, that means you're using the right bit of the search function. And while you can take the links to the catalogue to do more sophisticated and advanced searches, or indeed simple keyword searches, this pathway from the main page of the website is a good place to start. It's a good place to perhaps to put in the place where your ancestors come from to see what resources we might hold. Of course, genealogists know that the sources are most associated with localities and places and parishes. So that's a good thing just to put in a search to see what there is. The Society arranges its library and catalogue according to the pre-1974 county boundary changes. So not only do we still retain the pre-1974 county and parish names in the catalogues and finding aids, as they largely were when our ancestors lived there, but we also keep the home counties as they were before the creation of the London County Council in 1888, i.e. the LCC. So parishes south of London Bridge and the environs of the city, but in the former county of Surrey, such as Battersea, Bermondsey, Camberwell, Clapham, Lambeth, Merton, Rotherhithe, Southwark, Streatham, Tooting and Wandsworth, for example, are in our catalogue still considered to be Surrey. But I'm sure we'll see the definite explanation of how the county changes and how that particularly affects the metropolitan and eastern part of the county later on from the experts. But from our point of view, when you're using our library catalogue, it's really the parishes that might be counted as Surrey, which are indicated within the Phillimore Atlas and Index of Parish Registers. The list of the Surrey parishes is what we consider to be Surrey. We don't split East and West Surrey up in the library. We have it as a complete county. And so a typical county holding within our collection will include published materials, transcripts and indexes of records, as well as surrogate copies, such as microfilms and microfiche. So for the whole county of Surrey, we might have general items, which will include county histories, pedigrees, and family histories for people for the whole living in the whole counties, taxes. Perhaps someone might provide an index to the hearth tax, land tax, will indexes that might cover the whole county. Lots of finding aids and records. Beneath the sort of general county-wide material, we have what we call local items specific to places within the county. And in fact, for Surrey local items, there are over 1,300 items listed in the catalogue relating to places in the county, excluding parish registers. So local items from our point of view will be parish histories, parish chest records such as rate books, local quarter sessions, borough records, local poor law union records, etc. For church register copies, transcripts and indexes for the established Church of England as well as nonconformists. For Surrey, there are over 1,200 items, and for monumental inscriptions, we have over 405 items for Surrey listed in the catalogue. All the bound parish registers and monumental inscriptions, which were formerly on the Surrey shelves in our previous building, are now scanned and available as searchable PDFs to view in our new library. This means a way of space saving and downsizing a little bit. And we actually have a pilot project to upload monumental inscriptions, the digitised monumental inscriptions, on our online platform as we speak, and then we'll move on to upload the transcripts of the parish registers. But that does mean there's a lot of material off-site listed in the catalogue, and hence that's you will need to make a note of that. So things like directories, poll books, periodicals, etc. Most of those are stored off-site rather than on the open shelves. So using the catalogue to look for what there is for a place you're interested in, the catalogue will suggest, for example, there are 31 items for Addington, which is in East Surrey, and you can click on that and it'll tell you what we've got and where it is, as you could do for Coulsdon, which has 42 items listed in the catalogue. And again, these might be bound transcripts, many publications by local record societies, if it's particularly something's covered perhaps by the local family history society. There may be microfilm or microfiche of the original registers that we may have obtained from local record offices as well. And also there may be transcripts, indexes, finding aids for the established Church of England parishes, as well as nonconformist material. The catalogue will indicate whether the parish you're interested in is covered in Boyd's Marriage Index. There may be relevant things like Quaker Digests and all sorts of maps, local tax records, parish chest material. So do look in the catalogue by place to see what we have. If it has a box number, that means it's off-site. And if, for example, this parish register here, which is in a box, we have actually we've actually scanned it so you can view a digital copy, we'll tell you that we'll make that available for you to view in the library rather than call the box in. If the item is on the open shelves, it'll tell you and give you a shelf mark as well. In addition to library access to the major genealogy websites such as Ancestry, Find My Past, The Genealogist and My Heritage, etc., the Society is also a Family Search Partner affiliate library, so records that have been scanned and digitised by Family Search and listed in the Family Search catalogue can usually be viewed at the Society. And of course, as Family Search is making full text available across many of its unindexed records and viewable in an affiliate library, you can quite often use the enhanced search features from the catalogue as well. So in addition to parish records and monumental inscriptions, as I said, we collect what we call local items. These can comprise sources, places within a county, such as local histories, local war biographies, parish chest records, church wardens' accounts, settlement certificates, vaccinations, etc., etc. And there is quite a significant amount of local history material within the Society's collections for East Surrey. I was very interested to see the print. We have some of the printed volumes of the Croydon Union minutes from the Boards of Guardian minutes and proceedings, and how well some of those are indexed within the printed volumes and publications from the East Surrey Family History Society with indexes as well. But as I was flicking through these printed volumes for the Union, I noted they include notes on, for example, children sent to Canada through child migration schemes, and indeed details of salary employees who worked for the Union. One of our members had compiled a transcription of the occurrence book for the Dorking Police for the parish at Dorking for 1838 to 1839. Again, this is a typescript source material within the local material for places in the county. And indeed, there was even a micro history. I noted that someone had done a particularly detailed study of one particular street in Sutton. So again, the local material can be quite varied. It also includes, for example, some pedigrees for families who lived in Mitcham, which we have a copy and transcript of and index. So we have the manuscript Mitcham pedigrees, and put an index to that on SOG Explore. Moving from local material to the whole county, you can search for a number of search terms, and I've given you some examples of some of the search terms you can use in the catalogue there. For example, you could search for Surrey actors right through to sources for the World War I and II. General items might include bibliographies, histories of the county, things that cover the whole county, and indeed perhaps collections of pedigrees relating to the whole county. We have Stuart Raymond's Guide to Published Family History Pedigrees for the counties of Surrey and Sussex in his bibliography. Again, a useful guide to see what's been published before, and does the Society have a copy? Also, for example, Marshall's Genealogist Guide suggests there are narrative pedigrees for name Batley in Berry's Surrey Genealogies, and of course we have a copy of that in the library, as you'd expect the Society to have. And indeed, Marshall's Genealogist Guide is available to view on SOG Explore as a digitised book from our library on that platform. And indeed, again, that's the catalogue entry if you wanted to look at that early collection of narrative family history pedigrees for the county. We also encourage people to write up their family history, and the Society of Genealogists has a huge collection of compiled family histories deposited with us, well over 9,000 listed in the catalogue. We're currently in a partnership with Family Search to scan these. Again, that's a space-saving project for us if we can provide scanned PDF copies of them rather than have the books actually on the open shelves. That's been able for us to reduce space costs entirely. And indeed, you can search the catalogue by surname to see if there is a family history related to a particular family you're interested in, and we can bring that scanned version into the library for you. For example, Alfred Back's papers, notes on Back's family, including pedigrees, are substantiated with abstracts of wills and administrations for extracts for Surrey families that he'd looked at for his research into his family. And again, these 53 notebooks from the Back's papers have been abstracted and indexed from the wills and wills that he's abstracted as part of his research within the library's collection. Surrey wills, of course, you'd expect the Society to have all the indexes and finding aids to establish if a will exists for the courts which were relevant for the county, and the peculiars related to it as well. And also, as an affiliate library, we will have the digital copies made by Family Search of the church court records prior to 1858, and of course, as having access to Ancestry will give you access to those as well. There are a number of abstracts made from Surrey wills within the collection, some from copies held at other places, such as the British Library, for example. And again, these are all listed in the catalogue. The Cliff Webb's index and transcription of the Surrey will abstracts from the British Museum, as it was then, for the 16th century, have actually been placed on our SOG Explore digital platform for you to be able to view that from home if you're a member. Surrey is served by very active and flourishing local family history societies, and the Surrey Record Society and active local local history and local record societies as well. So we have the volumes of the family history societies and a very comprehensive run of those from the Surrey Record Society. Moving on from our printed works to our manuscript archives, if you were to look at the library pages of our website, you will be able to see the what we call the archive finding aids. We have a number of paper lists describing our archive collections. These include what we call our document collection, miscellaneous research notes on surnames arranged by surname, and there's a surname list of all the surnames represented in the document collections. We have what we call the special collections, which are usually the research of a particular researcher looking at lots of families that may be connected. And there are the collection reports. So there are over 700 of those special collections with the collection reports scanned and made available to view online. And we also have what we call the topographical. By topographical, these are sort of sources relating to place, which have come to us from a rather sort of miscellaneous way. While most of the items in the archive collections have come from donation or occasionals when we have taken in original records because no other record office want them, the 150 boxes of the topographical place papers have usually come into our archives through donation or clearances of things like solicitors' deed boxes via the British Records Association, which often acts as a clearinghouse for such dispersals. And they're in boxes like that. You'll forgive me, I forgot to change my picture of the Devon topographical boxes to the Surrey topographical boxes, but they are pretty much rough boxes like that. But there is a collection report of what's in the Surrey topographical boxes in the archive paper lists, which are online. You can see the topographical collection there, and we actually have that as London and Surrey as one list. You'll find that there, and you can see some just very odd items that have come into the library more by happenstance, but you'd be a bit surprised for us to actually have items like that. So these can be very broad, from extracts from documents. Here might be some title deeds which were presented in court, and some of the background papers relating to that, or some records relating to land transfer documents between the manors of Betchworth and Southwark. Or even to letters reporting an incident of a fire reported in Battersea in the 18th century. Again, these are a bit of a surprise that the Society has such original documents like that. It's more by a sort of an interesting rummage to see what there might be. The paper lists for the topographical collection, the special collections, and the document research notes were scanned as PDFs so that we can use them to produce a much better archive catalogue, which we're working on at the moment. We're using it in the back office at the moment, but hopefully that'll be something for you to search online and replace the old paper lists. We also have a huge number of compiled manuscript and typescript pedigrees, thousands and thousands of those within the collection. These are being scanned, indexed, abstracted, and put on SOG Explore as we speak. However, as part of that project, we made an inventory of them, and within the archive guides on the library pages of the website, you can find the inventories of the pedigrees, and you can see that it does give you a rough idea of where the family might be coming from. So you could find the Balchin pedigree, that's viewable on and searchable on SOG Explore, and you can then go on to view the particular pedigree. Here, for example, also I've looked at the there's the index, and the pedigrees can be viewed on SOG Explore. Taking that further, we're hoping to make the pedigrees more navigable by our tree search function, which is being integrated into SOG Explore for our members, whereby the scanned pedigree has been extracted, a GEDCOM has been made from it to create the index, enable them to be searched much better. SOG Explore is where we put in information digitized from our library and archives online on the SOG Explore platform in the members portal for our members. And if you use the A to Z listing on SOG Explore, I can identify over 50 data sets from the library relating to Surrey. These can be abstract transcripts of registers, extracts from licenses, again, all for you to have a view on SOG Explore. But I hope that's given you an overview of what the Society has, how you can use the library catalogue to search by place, how you can use the archive finding aids from the library to scan the paper list describing our archive collections, and if you're a member, can go on to use SOG Explore to view those items from the library and archives that we've digitised thus far. So I'm going to perhaps bring my presentation to a conclusion there. And do you want to pause there?
Yes, thank you very much, Elsa. That's I didn't realise the Society had so much, so that's my bad. So I'll down there. Thank you. And the next speaker I'd like to welcome is Hilary Blanford. And Hilary is the chairman of the East Surrey Family History Society, which I'm very keen to learn more about. So welcome, Hilary.
Thank you. And hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to join us. I've been chair of East Surrey now for almost 5 years. And I expect that your first question is what and where is East Surrey? Well, it's bounded on the north by the River Thames, which is shown by this black wiggly line that goes across the top of the map. And then down the west side, it's the parishes of Kew, Richmond, Petersham, Kingston, Thames Ditton. There's then the bulge with Leatherhead and Fetcham, and then we go down to the bottom left-hand corner of Newdigate. The southern border clearly is Sussex, and the eastern border is Kent. And the second question that you've probably got is, what can we offer you? Well, we have the research centre at Lingfield, and my philosophy, which I'll come on to in a minute, is our help desk at the family history fairs, live meetings, walks and visits to places and archives of interest. And we are extremely fortunate in East Surrey, particularly with the Southwark group, because we have 3 members of our society who are accredited tour guides, one for Lambeth, and he's also very familiar with Southwark, one for the City of London, one for Islington. We sometimes sneak off there, but she's also very familiar with and knowledgeable about Southwark. And then we also have a retired archivist who has worked in the archives in Bexley, Southwark and Lambeth, and he's also willing to share with us. So we do very well on our walks. Then we have a monthly talks on Zoom. We have a quarterly journal and an annual virtual family history fair, which some of you will have participated in, and to others it will be a new idea. And my philosophy, because when I took over as chairman, I was concerned at the rapid rate in which it seemed that we were losing members at the time. So I felt that new ideas were needed. And some of these would be Zoom talks, which we started at the beginning of lockdown. Our first session was with Mary Teviot. And as a result of that, we found ourselves making an advertising trailer for Mary, and it's still on her website. And then our second session we had with Julian, and I think he still remembers that afternoon well. I wanted to have more membership involvement, and I used Doodle and Google Sheets to consult with members. And one of my first tasks was to consult a membership survey, which we've recently repeated. I like to emphasize on how to research, and that influences the speakers that we book, both for live meetings in Southwark and also for the talks on Zoom. And the membership survey, this are some of the comments on our Zoom talks, which I think are quite favorable. I think the second point that was made is really very important, because it does enable members from all around the world now to participate in activities of the society, and they find it very enjoyable. And looking at some of the data that we collected from this second survey, we've got from 199 responses, we've got 93.5% have been researching their family history for longer than 10 years. We've got 66% are still researching, and some 33 are still occasionally researching. And length of membership of the society, I allowed members to record so long that they really can't remember, which quite a long time, more than 10 years. So in all, that means that we've actually got a considerable amount of expertise amongst our members that we're very happy to share with people. Our members over the years have transcribed a lot of data and produced records which are now available on either Parish Chest or GenFair. And here's one of our MI sets from Kingston. And we're in the process of increasing the ability to access these records, because we are entering into partnership with Find My Past. But they have said that they can't reproduce the more detailed descriptions of the parishes or the graveyard plans that we have on our downloads. So if you still want those, you'll have to come back to Parish Chest or Gen Fair and purchase them. But they're £1.50 to £2 mostly, so it's not a great deal of money to shell out and worth a lot. Here's some of the more records that we've transcribed. There's a Surrey Quarter Session set, Reigate Poor Laws, Lambeth Register of Orders of Removals and Adjudications onwards. These records can be absolutely fascinating and tell you a lot about your families. And researching in East Surrey, when you actually get down to it, there are some important Surrey dates to remember. And Julian, I know, is going to enlarge on these. But the first one is the fully enacted Burial Act, 1852, and then expanded. It originally referred to the metropolis, and then 1853 it was widened. But it does mean that you will have to search records for the Magnificent Seven. You'll find also that Southwark Record Office has got some of the registers of Nunhead, though they're on Deceased Online, as are all the Southwark burials. And the Woking burials also are now available on Deceased Online, but I think they've got records at the Surrey History Centre as well. And then the changes to the Surrey boundaries, and Julian's going to be talking more about this. The formation of the London County Council in 1889, and then in 1965, more recently, the formation of the Greater London area. Remembering this, you can actually not worry about if you're using more common records on sites such as Find My Past, Ancestry and the Genealogist, because they're very kind to you and they will accept either London or Surrey for these areas that have moved from one to the other. So they will usually produce your ancestors for you. More uncommon records, though, if you can't find what you're looking for, you do need to consider those dates. And the other thing to be aware of is that the City of London was very keen on the area known as Bridgefoot, which is the area around the southern edge of London Bridge. So you may find that the City of London or the Museum of London have got stuff that you're interested in. There are other records. Surrey History Centre, we've already referred to, and you'll hear from them later. The London Archives, the National Archives, Lambeth Palace Archives, and then local archives, Croydon, Lambeth, Caterham, and so on. And if all else fails, try the Discovery Catalogue at the National Archives, because they will have most things from all archives. And if you look at the bottom right-hand corner here, where it says All Archives, you can specify if you want to choose a particular archive. I tend to use this if I want to search for items in Lambeth Palace Archive, or Lambeth Palace Library, sorry, because they use CALM, which leaves me anything but. I find it easier to find their items on Discovery. I'm going to talk now a bit about the Southwark Archives, because this is the one with which I'm most familiar. So this is the open access area for the public. On the right, the filing cabinets contain the open photographic collection, and you'll see more as we talk round. Some of the gems, I think, are in the Southwark Archives are the Ceylon Index. That stands for South East London, and it was an index started by the Shillam family. It's still maintained by Peter, who's put some of his indexes on to Find My Past, but you'll find bound copies in the Southwark Library. And I believe that the indexing he's done for Lambeth is at Lambeth and so on. They have the first register for Dr. Collier's Hanover Chapel is at the National Archives. This is a non-conformist chapel, and their records were deposited with the old record office. But the second register is actually in Southwark, in the archives there. And because of a quirk of circumstances, Southwark have decided to have their records digitised by Find My Past, which doesn't fit with the rest of Surrey, and it doesn't fit with majority of the London records, although Find My Past is taking more and more of those under its umbrella. But somehow the second register didn't get to the record office and therefore transferred to the National Archives. There is a very useful annotated copy of the 1861 census in the library. And you may think, well, why is she talking about it? Well, early census returns very often will refer to so-and-so villas or a terrace. And then you look in a later census and you'll find that your ancestors are living in a street with possibly a house number. And you think perhaps they've moved. But if you consult this annotated record, you may find that they didn't actually move. It's just that the post office within London did a major renaming of streets and renumbered them. And so the terraces and villas were renamed by the street number. And it's quite useful to use this census because you can identify your ancestors' houses quite accurately. They have censuses for 1801, 1811, 1821, and 1831 in Southwark in the library. And the 1831 census has been transcribed, and they've also transcribed the rate books for 1831. So it's possible to compare the two, and you can sometimes identify the house where your ancestor lived and see what his or her occupation was. There's a copy of the London County Council Directory of Street Name Changes, which is very useful. They changed a lot of the street names because many of them were reproduced across London. And I've already mentioned how the terraces and the villas got subsumed into street names. There were 3 editions of that directory produced. I'm not sure which one is in Southwark, but it's enough to get you going. They have a large unindexed collection of deeds, as well as the indexed collection. They have a large collection of ephemera on open access and the large photographic collection on open access. And they also have the cholera maps for Southwark. And Southwark is interesting because the water was supplied by 2 different water companies, one of which was producing clean water, and the other, unfortunately, was distributing infected water. And you could find a situation where your next door neighbour didn't get smallpox because they were receiving water from the pure water supply, but perhaps your ancestors had water that was infected, or they perhaps got smallpox elsewhere, cholera, from elsewhere. And the report for the cholera epidemic is actually held at the Wellcome Museum. So you do need to go poking around all sorts of places to find your records for your Southwark ancestors. Here's an example of what you might find in the Ceylon Index, the South East London. This is from the Bermondsey Outdoor Relief Index that Peter produced. And this is my 3 times great-grandmother, Jane Ambrose, and 2 children. And it wasn't until I saw this, and here's his poor name index, poor law index on the shelves. Lots of them have done. And here's the overseas record. And here at number 7 is Jane Ambrose living at 5 London Street, age 25, husband deserted her, 2 children, age 7 and 2, which fits with their baptisms. And here, in these metal cabinets, they have the microfilms, and some of those include the local newspapers. And as these haven't yet all been digitized on the British Newspaper Archive, it's a very valuable source. And I have the death certificate for one of my great-great-grandmothers, and there was an inquest held on her death, 21st of January, 1886. And that date enabled me to find the next newspaper publication 2 days later, January the 23rd. And here we have the full report of her accident and her last few weeks of life. So it's really worth going and having a look in your local record offices. This is one of the files from the ephemera collection. Doesn't look very inspiring from the outside, does it? But inside there are some most beautiful advertisements, real Victorian publicity. And here's an example of the London County Council street name changes. And as you see, it gives you the name of the street, the locality, postal district, parish, and so on. So you can identify very accurately what you're looking at. And this example gives you a lot of the street renumberings. Here's some of the deeds indexes in the center of this slide on the open shelves. And here's the indexes of the ratepayers' names. Again, very useful. And I put this in because I love this book. It's produced by the London Topographical Society, and I know that the SOG has a copy as well. On the top right-hand corner, we've got a view of St. George the Martyr, which we've already mentioned in this afternoon's talk. And to the left of that was the original Marshalsea prison, and that top left-hand corner of this slide, pretty well where the John Harvard Library is today, which is where the Southwark group of East Surrey Family History Society meets alternate months on a Monday. And here's that frontispiece reproduced on a map. We've got St. George the Martyr at the bottom, the graveyard, which is labelled here as Gravel Yard, the mortuary on the right, which is still there. Some of the gravestones are still in that area. And then the buildings further up Borough High Street. And this map comes from the Goad Plans collection. These were a series of maps drawn up for insurance companies to use when working out what sort of insurance premium to charge. And then if you turn the book upside down, you can look at the buildings on the opposite side of the street. And here are some of our members in the archive, and they're looking at the Jones and Higgins archive. Jones and Higgins was a very large department store in Peckham Rye. Building is empty these days. It's been quite seriously vandalized, and we walked past it on one of our walks when we did a Camberwell walk. But we spent a very pleasant time looking at the archives, and we had a talk also from one of the staff, from Lisa Savril. And the lady who's second on the left, she told us how she used to go shopping there every weekend. And the green boxes that are on top of the filing cabinets, well, those are the boxes which were used to send material off to Find My Past, which have come back. And here's two more members looking at this lovely photograph album. Some of our past activities, well, our study day this year was held at the National Archives. We were able to use their lovely auditorium. And then they put on this document display for us. We chose what we'd like to see. So those very thick volumes that they're looking at, the bound volumes, are mostly wills. And then we asked for all sorts of other things. And the lady in the corner, in the black and white striped top, that's our membership secretary, who you'll deal with if you decide to join us. One of our new activities was tea and talks at Surrey History Centre, which we enjoyed very much. Then we have a visit to the Welcome Museum. We did this after we'd had a talk from one of the staff members, and we've done that quite often. We did this with the Institute of Historical Research, for example, and then we went to visit it. We've been to Lambeth Palace Archive, or Lambeth Palace Library, and they hold the original of the marriage licenses. The SOG has the indexes, but if you want to read the full license, you need to go to Lambeth Palace. And so we did a visit. This was some years before COVID, We had a lovely afternoon and we were in the old library, which is a beautiful room. We had a talk and again, display of documents. And then after the talk, we were taken into the garden and we walked along this fence to look through the viewing holes, and we could see the new Lambeth Palace Museum being built. At the time we looked, it was really a sea of mud. And then we went back a few years ago. This is the new building. And again, we had a talk and a tour. This is a view of the Shard that you've probably never seen. It's the bottom end in St. Thomas's Street. London Bridge Station is just a little further along the road. But this red brick building is the tower of St. Thomas's Church. And in the top, it has the old operating theatre. You have to go up a spiral staircase, and the last 2 or 3 steps are quite challenging. There's also the old Herb Garret, but again, that was one of our visits. And we had a speaker from there who's very knowledgeable about all the grave robbers. So that was a fascinating talk. One of our walks was along Borough High Street. We passed the George Inn. And here is the inn, the oldest and only surviving galleried pub in London. And we've had our Christmas lunches there the last 2-3 years. We're going to try somewhere else this year. We've become very adept at identifying boundary marks of the parishes within the London Borough of Southwark. This is the boundary mark on St. George the Martyr, 1844. This is an unusual boundary mark because usually the parish church is somewhat near the centre of the parish, but in this case, it's right on the edge, joining St. Mary Newington. One of our walks took us to the Rotherhithe Picture Research Library, which is part of the Sands Film Studio, and we were privileged to be taken around the whole of the studio as well. But the picture library is here. It's on the ground floor, open access to anyone. Wonderful. And here are some of our members. We did a visit during lockdown in Morden. So it shows you how fat I became during lockdown. And there's our lovely late Anne Raymond. We've given donations to various people, one of which was to Sutton Archives. They were very fortunate in that they were able to obtain the complete working collection of David Knight's Whittam's glass negatives in his basement of his shop. They needed a lot of work doing to clean and restore them, and we contributed to the funding of that. We've also given a donation to Surrey History Centre. I think Julian might refer to it. And we're currently funding some digitisation work for the Southwark Archives. This is one of the collection from Sutton. I think it's a rather beautiful photograph, which you'll see again in a few minutes. And some of our future activities. Well, we have our fabulous virtual family history show on the 24th of January. And you'll find that Surrey History Centre will be represented. And you can find more details on our website. At the moment, it's currently under development again, so a lot of our future activities haven't yet been posted, but I can assure you we've got a lot of Zoom talks booked, ready to go online, plus some meeting talks. Here's a few of the societies or organisations that are coming in January. We use Zoom and we use breakout rooms, and you take yourself around from room to talk to different society members. There are no talks, no formal talks. It's bring your question, hopefully find some answers, or just come and listen to other people's questions. It's a useful learning opportunity. And we have a virtual pub too. If you get weary of asking questions, you can just go and chat in the pub. The Society of Australian Genealogists are joining us for the first time. They'll be with us, though, just for the morning. In my survey, I asked about members using the breakout rooms at the fairs. Some of them had not come to one before, and some didn't understand how they work. So I'm going to be organising a workshop to make sure that more members can understand how the virtual fair works, so they hopefully will join us and get more benefit from their membership. We had a talk a few months ago from Indy Buller, who works at the LSE. He manages the booth collection, which is far more than just the poor law maps. There are all sorts of notebooks on families, and also a collection on occupations and professions across London. So that's going to be interesting because we're going to visit LSE. This is a type version of one of the notebooks, and it refers to Southwark, and it refers to the people in blocks of Peabody models earn sufficient to live decently. And here is a rather grotty picture of the Southwark Peabody building. This is LSE, where we're going in January to have a look at the original booth collection. And also in March, we've got our annual study day. And this year it will be held at St Matthew's Church in Chichester Road, Croydon. And the theme for the day is Follow the Money. We're starting with Simon Fowler talking about making the best use of the National Archives. Then Dave Annell has written a new talk on taxation records for family historians. And then Nicholas Dixon will be talking about using deeds and civil court records. So it's a live presentation, no Zoom on this, and free. So just let us know you want to come. And in the summer, May or June, haven't firmed the date up yet, we're going to visit the London Archives, and we're probably going to be looking at the collection of the fire insurance records. And that's their search room. I have to admit, I've never seen it quite that busy, but obviously it was on that day. And also next year, dates to be confirmed, we'll have some live DNA workshops with Donna Rutherford on DNA. So if you like what you've heard, why not join us? This is our membership leaflet. You'll recognize the picture in the bottom right-hand corner, and the picture, the color picture in the top left-hand corner, that's the Lingfield Community Centre where the Lingfield group meets. And you'll find access to joining us on the membership on our website. That's the address. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Hilary. What a lovely tour of what's available and where to find it. I think you'll find a lot of people taking you up on that. Thanks once again. For our next talk about the Surrey History Centre, we're lucky enough to have two people talking to us. And the first one is Julian Purley, FSA. Julian is Public Services and Engagement Manager at the Surrey History Centre in Woking and has been a professional archivist for nearly 40 years. He's joined by his colleague Jill Hyams, who is an archivist at the Surrey History Centre and has been researching her own family history for over 20 years. Welcome to you both.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, so we're looking at Surrey History Centre in Woking. We're on Goldsworth Road, and we are the home of the county's archive and local studies library. We've been here since 1998, and we bring together in one place the former County Record Office, which some people may remember was in the basement of County Hall in Kingston, and then there was Guildford Monument Room in Quarry Street in Guildford, and also Surrey Local Studies Library. And we'd all run out of space, and thankfully, with the help of Surrey County Council and the National Lottery, we were able to build this purpose-built history centre here in Woking.
And we welcome visitors from across the county, the country, and indeed from all over the world. And it's free to visit us and see the millions of historic documents in our care. including this enormous 16th century Advent antiphona.
We care for 900 years of Surrey's written memory. Our oldest document is probably around 1170. The most up-to-date document would probably be last week's Surrey Advertiser newspaper. And we store these amazing records on 6 miles of mobile shelving in 3 strong rooms that run through the centre of the building. They contain a vast number of historic records of Surrey's churches, businesses, schools, local government, military regiments, that's the East Surrey Regiment, as well as the Queen's Royal West Surrey Regiment, landed estates and charities and hospitals, lots and lots of hospitals in Surrey. And we've also got these huge rolled maps of Surrey's estates and parishes. There are tithe maps here and enclosure maps, poor law maps as well. It's a vast collection. And loads, thousands of plans and illustrations, including watercolours and engravings. And it's an incredible collection of illustrations relating to Surrey, along with, well, at least 40,000 printed books on the history of Surrey and its people. So it's a major research library in itself.
And we're open on Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays from 9:30 until 5. We have a break for lunch. We're also open on the second Saturday of the month. We ask that you bring your archives card or Surrey Libraries card or Cairn ticket with you. We now require visitors who are looking at original documents to register for an archives card. And this is a national scheme that allows visitors to use one card for all participating archive services. You need to register in advance of your visit, and then that's completed when you arrive here at the History Centre. Full details of how to sign up and what ID is required can be found on the Archives Card website. Now, if you're unable to apply for an archives card, we ask you to bring some form of ID with your address and or your signature on it for your visit, and then we'll issue you with a day pass in order that you can look at original documents. But this will only be valid for the day of your visit.
Before I move on to the next slide, I think I did see in the chat somebody asking about parking. We do have a car park, quite a large car park actually at Surrey History Centre, but it can get quite busy. You enter it from Kingsway, not from Goldsworth Road. Goldsworth Road is our address, but you can enter it by Kingsway by coming up here or coming up from the other side here. If for any reason that is full, this big block here is Morrison's, massive superstore with an enormous car park. And I think you can park up there for about 3 hours before you get sent to prison or something. Is that right, Jill?
Yeah, I think you can. Yeah, you can't park there all day. I don't know how well it's monitored, but probably best not to take a chance.
No, but if we are full, do try that. And then there's a little alleyway that leads down back to Kingsway, and yeah, so it's only about 2 minutes walk. It's fine. So we advise everyone really to email us before they visit, so that, well, really we can help your visit to be as successful as possible. As we're going to see shortly, boundary changes can mean that we may not hold the records that you're looking for. So by contacting us in advance, we can save you a wasted journey, but also advise you on what we do hold that is likely to be of help to your research. And we can order material up for you in advance, so it's ready for you when you arrive. We can order about 10 items up in advance of your visit, and then you can always order more during the course of your visit. Just before we move on to the next slide, I should mention this wonderful tapestry up here, which we paid for with the part of the lottery funding. It was called Art in the Workplace, and we commissioned it from the West Dean College of Art in Sussex, and it tells the story of Surrey through the written word. If any of you come on our tours of the History Centre, where we go behind the scenes, we give an explanation of all of these panels, but they're based on the history of Surrey and different texts associated with the county that you will find in our documents. It's well worth coming to see.
Many of our records are accessible online via Ancestry and Find My Past. This page that's showing is on our website, and it has links to lists of what's available on these pay-per-view websites. But remember, although you normally need a subscription for these sites, it is free to access them at Surrey History Centre and at all the libraries across Surrey. So, for example, here's a list of records that are available on Ancestry. They include things like electoral registers and land tax returns, which are the records that preceded electoral registers and are very useful. They date from about 1780. And also on Find My Past, there's many records relating to Surrey, and these include regimental records, records like enrolment registers, records of people who served in the Boer War, a whole range of things. So it's really useful to have a look. And these are getting updated, you know, on a fairly regular basis. So keep visiting the pages to see what's available. Also, our tremendous team of volunteers are also busy creating indexes to a wide range of other records that will be of use to family historians. And on the same webpage, there are links to PDFs of these spreadsheets on our website. And these include indexes to Surrey Poor Law records and registers of children at schools such as the Churchill School of Handicrafts, and also detailed indexes to many of the medical case books of Surrey's former mental hospitals. Julian mentioned earlier, there were an awful lot of hospitals, particularly mental hospitals in Surrey. And to search for records through the rest of our collections, you can use our online catalogue, which is called Surrey Archives. And this really works in a similar way to most of the online catalogues of other county record offices. And if you can't find what you're looking for, please email us and our expert team will be very happy to help and advise. But unlike many county record offices, we also have a sister website called Exploring Surrey's Past. And this really allows us to showcase our wonderful collections through a host of themed pages. So we have a section of Surrey people, ranging from artists, gardeners, philanthropists, influential women, film stars and actors, musicians, etc. And places, all the many different villages and towns in Surrey. And some of these have been created by local history societies, so they really know their subject. And then themes, from refugees to Black history in Surrey, a whole range of different themes worth looking at. And then also, of course, places exploring the history and archives of Surrey mental hospitals. This one is of Nethen Hospital in Coulsdon. Some very interesting information and gives you a real breakdown of the type of records and the range and dates that we hold for each hospital.
But a word of caution. As we've been hearing, Surrey has changed a lot since this map of the ancient county was drawn up by Herman Moll in 1724. And as you can see, at that time, and indeed right down until 1888, Surrey parishes followed the line of the River Thames all the way from Kingston round to Rotherhithe and on the borders with Kent. Indeed, a very large proportion of Surrey's population was crammed into the densely populated warbs and alleys of Southwark, Bermondsey and Newington up here. You can actually see the darker shading with all of those streets spilling over from London into Surrey there. This slide shows the parishes that were lost when the County of London was created in 1889. Croydon was also lost because it became an autonomous county borough, even though technically it was still part of the county. And then this slide shows the further losses we sustained when the Greater London Council was created in 1965. Croydon lost its county borough status and became a London borough. And those boroughs of Kingston, Richmond, Wimbledon and Sutton, and as I say, Croydon, became part of the Greater London area. And as if that was not enough, further changes took place in 1974 when the current 11 Surrey districts and boroughs were created and the county gained Spelthorne, which had previously been part of Middlesex. So this map shows just how much of northeastern Surrey we lost to London between 1889 and 1965. What does that mean for the Surrey historian? Well, parish registers are usually stored in the record office or archive relevant to the diocese and county. So if your ancestors lived in one of the metropolitan parishes, you may find that the parish records are held either at the London archives or they may be in the borough's local studies library. Parish records for the present administrative county of Surrey, which is what you can see on screen now, are held by us.
So if that sounds confusing, don't worry. We have a page on our website which provides a guide to which parish registers we hold. And there's a link to a PDF listing all of Surrey's parishes, ancient and modern, and details of where you'll find their records. So, for example, this page shows that the original registers for Camberwell are held by the London Archives, but we have them on fiche at Surrey History Centre. So always worth checking before you visit.
But that's not to say that all records relating to those metropolitan parishes are not held by us. At Surrey History Centre, we do in fact hold a vast number of records that relate to these areas because they're part of larger historic collections that cover the whole county. And that's especially true of Surrey's Court of Quarter Sessions. They date back to the mid-17th century, and as I'm sure you know, they're the written records of the Surrey Justices of the Peace and other leading gentlemen who met quarterly, Epiphany, Easter, Midsummer and Michaelmas, in the county towns of Southwark, Reigate, Kingston and Guildford, to ensure that the county was functioning properly, making sure that roads and bridges were maintained, victuallers and gamekeepers were licensed, private asylums were inspected, poor law disputes settled, etc. But they also heard cases of petty felony. Serious crimes like murder or grand larceny would have waited for the assize judges to pass through Surrey on one of their circuits. But smaller misdemeanours, petty theft, assault, etc., were heard by these quarter sessions. So here you can see a printed list of prisoners whose cases were heard at the Epiphany session held in Southwark in 1782. And if we zoom in a little bit more closely, you can see just how useful these are for historians of families in East Surrey. Elizabeth Jones, just down here, was accused of stealing a gown and petticoat from Martha Young in Fishmonger Alley in Southwark. And Elizabeth Tidy was acquitted of stealing sheets from George Harding in Limpsfield. So we've got the printed text here, but then you've got the actual sentence and adjudication written in the margin. So sentence passed there, but she's acquitted. And this is one of hundreds of sessions rolls that we hold, recording the charges made against Surrey people and the witness statements against them. Thousands of these have been indexed by our volunteers, and they're now searchable on Find My Past and also through our online catalogue.
We also hold the records of the Philanthropic Society, which was founded in London in 1788 by gentlemen who were worried about the large number of homeless children in the city who could earn their living only through begging or crime. The charity they established maintained several families of children cared for and trained by craftsmen and their wives in rented houses. And the charity's first institution opened in St George's Fields in Southwark in 1792. And it was followed in 1802 by a reform manufactory where the children were put to work making clothes, shoes, rope and other items. In 1849, the Philanthropic Society moved to Redhill in Surrey, which is why we hold the records. The admissions registers date back to 1788 and are particularly useful for family historians because they give such wonderfully detailed accounts of the children admitted to the institution. You're given the boy's full name, his age, circumstances before admission, his behaviour, the date and details of his discharge, any apprenticeship and the trade that he later followed. And importantly, news of his subsequent life. So you can often see what happened to them. Did they, lead a better life or did they, fail? It's very interesting to see what happened to them afterwards.
Yes, and again, our volunteers have indexed all of the admission registers right the way through from 1788 to 1921, and PDFs of these are available on our website. And in addition, I must record our huge thanks to the East Surrey Family History Society for making us a generous grant a couple of years ago, which has enabled us to purchase a high-resolution camera so that we can digitise these records and the photographs of the boys they contain. Many of these lads came from Southwark and other Surrey parishes in the northeast of the county, so this is a really important resource for family historians. The patient records of Surrey's former psychiatric and learning disability hospitals are also another major source for family historians. Surrey's first county asylum, Springfield Hospital in Wandsworth, opened in 1841, and indexes to the surviving casebooks from then up to 1889 have recently been added to our website. Springfield is actually still there. It's part of the St George's Hospital complex now, although the buildings that you see here are gradually being converted into flats and accommodation. Surrey stopped running it in 1888, I think it was, when it was taken on by the Metropolitan Commission of Lunacy. And then when the London County Council was established in 1889, they assumed responsibility for it. So if your ancestors were there after 1889, then the surviving records are likely to be at the London Archives. We can only help you with the very earliest records, but even though the ones we've got are really tremendous. Big though it was soon overcrowded, and so Brookwood Hospital here in Woking opened as Surrey's second county asylum in 1867. Between them, both these hospitals admitted hundreds of patients from the eastern part of the county and the metropolitan parishes. And our volunteers have now indexed all of the Brookwood casebooks. So as an example of just how useful these can be for East Surrey family historians, I ran a search for Kingston through those spreadsheets that are available on our websites. And they show that we've got case notes for 76 people from Kingston in the Springfield casebooks from 1850s through to the 1870s. And no less than 1,422 people from Kingston were admitted to the Brookwood Hospital between 1867 and 1921. Surrey's proximity to London encouraged other bodies to establish asylums in the county. In 1854, one of the very first, I think it was the first, learning disability hospital, charmingly called the Royal Earlswood Asylum for Idiots, was opened at Redhill. This was a national institution taking in patients from all over the country, and its records are a goldmine for family historians because they say so much, not just about the patient, but about their wider family circle as well. And as you can see, the casebooks often include photographs of the patients. It's worth noting, actually, that the very first medical superintendent at Earlswood was a chap called Dr. John Langdon Down. And he was there in the 1850s through to about 1868. He used his camera and he wouldn't have taken this one because this was taken in 1889, but he used his camera to photograph the patients. And because he was interested in the racial stereotyping of what he called imbecility and identifying underlying causes for this, he identified what he called Mongol imbecility through these photographs, which became known as Mongolism, but is now known much better term as Down syndrome in his honor. But importantly, the records, the photographs that we have here of those young people with this condition, now known as trisomy 21, are the very first photographs, very first photographic portraits of people living with Down syndrome. So they're an incredibly important historical resource. Surrey's proximity to London has other effects as well, because the London County Council, having run out of space for people in its asylums at Hanwell and Banstead and Coney Hatch, etc., established the Epsom cluster of 5 huge psychiatric hospitals at the turn of the 20th century. The manor opened in 1899. It was followed by Horton Hospital, by Long Grove Hospital, St Ebba's Epileptic Colony, as you can see here, and West Park Hospital. And between them, these huge institutions admitted an awful lot of people from London and the South London, North East Surrey area. And they're very, very heavily used by family historians. And as you can see, the information about each patient is very detailed. It's often quite upsetting to read, I have to say, even if it's over 100 years old, but it often includes a photograph of the patient. These were pauper institutions, so it's highly unlikely that these people being photographed in the hospital would have come across a camera before, let alone have their photograph taken. One can only imagine what it must have felt like to be sat down and plonked in front of a tripod with a person under a black cape in front of you and a bit of magnesium flash going off. Must have caused them no end of distress. So here's another beautiful image of a patient from the Manor Hospital. This is 1899. The lady's wearing standard hospital issue. But it's lovely that she's holding the hold of a cat. I think the patients, in many cases, took the opportunity of having their photograph taken to tell us something about themselves. So there are clues in these images as to the personality of the patient, which is only now starting to come to light through some of the engagement projects that we're doing using these incredible records.
Yeah, they're fascinating records, aren't they? We also hold the military records of the Queen's Royal West Surrey Regiment and the East Surrey Regiment. And there's a detailed guide to these records on our website. They don't include information on every soldier, and they don't include service records, but they do include many sources which give names of individuals, and they also contain an enormous collection of photographs, many of which are captioned with names. We also hold copies of newspapers from the east of the county, such as the Surrey Comet from 1854 and the Surrey Mirror from 1879. And I should also mention that we offer free access to the British Newspaper Archive on the computers in our search room. And that, of course, contains a lot of Surrey papers. It's a very important resource. And we also hold thousands of coroner's inquest papers from the 20th century. As you can see here, Kingston from 1926 to 1933, Reigate from 1912 to 1933, and the East Surrey district from 1933 to 60. And for the earlier records, the earlier inquest records that don't survive, it's always worth looking at local newspapers because they often reported them in great detail.
And all of these sources are complemented by the thousands of illustrations that can really bring your family history to life. The 800 watercolours of Surrey buildings by John and Edward Hassell, which date from the 1820s, give family historians a glimpse inside the churches where their ancestors were baptised or married, allowing us to gain a sense of place that can really put our research into context. This is Nutfield Church in the east of the county, painted by Edward Hassell in 1828. Photographs are good for this too. The thousands that were taken by the Surrey photographic record at the turn of the 20th century include many that will be of help to family historians, like this one, a team photo of the inmates at Bletchingley Workhouse in 1900. And we also hold a large archive of photographs of East Surrey taken by George and Herbert Bunce of Caterham. They were a family firm of photographers, and they took loads of images of the daily life around them in the Caterham and Bourne Valley area. This is 70 members of the Caterham Valley Home Guard. So again, very useful source for historians. And finally, I must mention the Gentleman's Magazine, the world's very first magazine, published monthly from 1731 right through to the end of the 19th century. Although it was printed in London and contains news from all over the country, it's particularly useful for family historians in Surrey tracing their Georgian and Victorian ancestors. And for the past 12 years or so, I've been leading a team of volunteers in a project to transcribe every single reference to Surrey and its people that was printed in the magazine in each monthly issue, right the way through from 1731 to the 1860s. The first volume, which will cover 1731 to 1754, is about to go to the printers and should be available through Surrey Record Society early next year. The thousands of Surrey births, marriages, deaths, crimes, punishments, bankruptcies and obituaries that it recorded are a wonderful source for family historians, especially if you have ancestors for the heavily populated metropolitan parishes. But it also, as you can see here, contains maps and illustrations that are useful for understanding what Surrey looked like nearly 3 centuries ago. So do look out for that book when it's published by Surrey Record Society early next year. And finally, there's our contact details, so our full address, email, but also our social media feeds. Thank you very much for listening. We're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. A very good nose around what you have in the Surrey History Centre, and a great explanation, thank you, of how the boundaries changed and what the impact was therefore for the different records. I think that's been very, very helpful. For our last talk today, I'd very much like to welcome Dr. Paula Alcott. Paula is a senior research associate at the University of Portsmouth and a contributor to the local history website, A Vision of Britain Through Time, which I think is what you're going to focus on this afternoon.
It is, yes. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Hope I'm sorry I missed part of the presentation this afternoon, but hopefully this will give you a little bit of insight into what we do. So we have a website that is designed to give you information about any place in Great Britain. And it's designed to help you get an idea of how the place, what the place was like in the past. You can search with a place name or a postcode, and we'll give you back old maps, descriptions of places that were written in the past, and statistics. So this is the homepage of the website at the moment. You'll see in the top right-hand corner, there is a search box that works on any page in the website that you visit. So if you want to start your search again, you can just type a new place name in the top. But for today, the search box in the middle is what we're going to focus on. And this is where you put in your place name or your postcode. And today we're going to use Redhill as the example. And I noticed it was mentioned in the previous talk, so it's quite a nice link. So you type in Redhill and you'll see that there's a list of various Redhills across the country, and you select the one that you're interested in. So in this case, it's the first one, Redhill in Surrey. And you reach a place homepage for Redhill. If there was only a single place with the name that you're interested in, it would take you straight to this page and miss the previous page out. And this page is designed to work in two ways. It works as a stepping stone to other information within the website, but it also works to give you information straight away about the place that you're interested in. So you'll see at the top there is an outline map of Great Britain and the UK, and there's a location indicator on there. Then there is buttons to various other parts of the site and a list of nearby places that are a similar or smaller size than the place that you're interested in, that are nearby. And then underneath we have a description from a historical gazetteer. The ones we have in the site are all from the late 19th century. This is from Wilson's Imperial Gazetteer. So if you want to read it, you would just click on the further information and the extract will extend so that you can read the whole lot. Once you've read that, you might think, oh, what else have they got? So you then go to the historical writing button and click on that. And it takes you through to a page that gives you links to our other excerpts that are about the place in question. Excuse me. So Redhill's quite interesting because there was never a parish named after it, but the point is that you can still find information about the area. So you have the entries at the top from the historical gazetteers, and underneath you have links to our travel writing, which is people who journeyed around Britain and wrote descriptions about what they saw in their journals. And in this case, we've only got one, which is William Cobbett. So if I clicked on that link, it would take me to the first reference that he makes to the place that I'm interested in. So as he only mentions Redhill once, he's just talking about it in passing as he's going past the place. But you can see that all of the place names in this entry are all hyperlinked, so you can click on them to go back to a place page about the named place. You'll see there's a little map on the right hand side that has blue dots that shows all of the places that are listed that he visited in this particular entry. So if we go back to the place page, we can go to the other information we've got. So you might want to look at a map. So if you click on the map, it will take you to where we have our scans of historical maps. And you'll see that there is a map window, which can be made bigger. And underneath that window, there is a listing of maps. Now, as you pan and zoom the map, this listing underneath will update. So it will always show you the maps that we have that are the most relevant in terms of area and scale. So if you click on the map thumbnails at the bottom, so I'm just going to pick one as an example. This is from 1903. It will show you the whole sheet, and you can zoom in and pan around the sheet at the same time, but it means you can see the margins of the map as well. So if there's any notes or a key, you can look at that. So this example is from 1903. As you can see, it's quite small. This is the most detailed maps that we hold. We don't hold any street plans, so it's all this kind of level similar. So what else do we have? Well, if you go back to the place page on the related websites link, it takes you through to a listing of different websites that have a national coverage like ours. And if you click on the links, it will take you to the page in that website that's about the place you're interested in. So in this case, Redhill. Sometimes there's a lot of links. We have Victoria County history and Genealogy links as well. In this particular instance, there's not so many. The locations nearby tab will give you other websites such as Geograph or National Library of Scotland maps. So they're slightly more general in their area that they show, but they're still associated with the place. And then the final bit of information that we hold in our site is about statistics. And we look at these in two ways. Firstly, we have the place through time. So if we clicked on the button at the bottom, called Redhill through time, we come to a unit page for the modern district. Now, Redhill is currently in Reigate and Banstead district. And at the top, you've got the statistical themes that we have for this district. Underneath, you have all the extra information we have about the unit, and you can explore them. You can expand and contract them as you want to read the information. I'm just going to give a quick example of one of the statistical bits of information. So I'm going to choose population. And this takes me through to a listing where at the top there are rate graphs, and underneath there are statistical data sets. So we're going to choose total population as an example today. And this shows me the total population of Reigate and Banstead district from 1801 through to 2021. And it presents you with a graph view to start with, and then you can see the table with the numbers in them and the source information. Now, as was alluded to previously, Reigate and Banstead district has not existed since 1801. But we do this to present a simple view of how a place has changed over time. They are estimates, but they're good estimates. If, however, you wanted to look at the original information, we have that as well. So if you go to the Unit and Statistics button at the top of the place page and click on that, it gives you a list of all the administrative units that have been linked to this area through time. So at the top, we have the ones that are labelled as extended. This means that they have been projected back in the same way as the Reigate and Banstead district was that we just talked about. And you'll see there's a ward there. There is a built-up area which we use because Redhill doesn't have its own district. And underneath that are a listing of the older units that existed but have since been abolished. So Redhill was part of Reigate Registration District in the 19th century. A registration district is usually a town with the area, the rural area around it as part of it. And you can see that has a population from 1801 through to 1911. And then in the 20th century, it's part of Reigate Municipal Borough, and we have the population figures for that. And this is a much smaller area and covers the more urban area. There'll also be a rural district that goes with the surrounding area. Hopefully that covers what we can offer you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that explanation of how the site works. I think a lot of us are interested in getting to understand how we can use it and how we can support our other research. Thank you once again.